Hello, and welcome to The Obscure Arc, episode one. Uh, I'm Jared,
And I'm Emre.
and we've been wanting to do a podcast for a while to talk about anime that we really love. We're coworkers, and we basically started one of our shifts with the whole awkward conversation of, "Oh, so do you like? What do you like to watch? What do you like? You like anime? Oh, yeah, I mean, I like anime too." And then we talked about Haikyuu for like 5 hours. So
True.
um, that said, a lot of the shows that we want to recommend to each other are ones that really aren't the most popular. I'm not going to pretend that they're like 80s cult classics. You've never heard of them, like they're super niche things, but a lot of these shows often fly either just under the radar or it's like people talk about them for like a moment and then they're just gone. But we really want to talk about them for just some obscure reason. Uh, So I want to introduce us because I think a big thing is that our biases are going to come in really hard. Like I know I'm very biased on a lot of my opinions for people who know me, and it's going to be a lot about what we like and um, what really affects how we approach things. So because I've been yapping so much, I'll let you start.
Yeah, of course. Like Jared mentioned, my name is Emre, and I'd say, in comparison to you, I have less of a niche for like specific genres and
hmm
stuff. I have, unfortunately, one specific can't do genre that I'm working on it, which is mecha. Mecha, I'm not really good at it. Everything else, I am up to watch it. I usually do watch it, like a backstory of me and like how I got into anime.
hmm
Is I grew up with animes like Captain Tsubasa or Beyblade or Muscle Man or Kinnikuman Man in Japanese, or even like weird dramas called one was called Jang Geum's Dream.
Is that the food one that you showed me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's like in a castle setting with like a cookish servant gal, having her own romantic interests and like dramas with guards and stuff like that. Like I grew up watching a lot of different anime with different genres. So
hmm
that's why I don't necessarily have like, oh, I'll watch this specifically or won't watch this specifically. But again, mecha is usually something I find hard to watch, but working on it. Other than that, some cheesy stuff that I like. Sword Art Online. It's
Unfortunately,
unfortunately it's one of my first animes that I watched knowing it was an anime.
yeah,
Because every other one that I mentioned, I didn't know they were called animes. They were
Mm,
just cartoons
yeah.
on TV for me. So Sword Art Online, I like it a lot. I like, weirdly enough, Katekyo Hitman Reborn, which technically never finished because they cut it abruptly after the end of a specific arc, or some other shows that are objectively better, like Piano no Mori. And sorry, I will tell a lot of Japanese names because I am Turkish, and in Turkey, when we watch animes, we don't watch dubs because we don't have dubs.
Yeah.
So a lot of show names we learn in Japanese, and a lot of animes we watch in Japanese with subtitles. So
Yeah, I staunchly refuse to use Japanese names just to not sound like a weeb. And when I first met Emre, I was like, "Oh God, is he a weeb?" Until I learned the real reason why. I watch and sub, but I just if a show has a reasonable English translation for their name, I will always use it. So there will be a little confusion here and there, to say the
yeah,
least.
like whenever I can remember the English name, I'll try to use those, like Janggeum's Dream or stuff, or Captain Tsubasa. But Piano no Mori, I think it was the piano in the forest,
The Force of
the
Piano.
forest of piano.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So that one, or Made in Abyss,
yeah,
which is a really, really important anime for me because it kind of scaled up how significant sound and music is
yeah.
in modern anime. Um, but yeah, that's a short info session about me, and take it away.
So I'm a lot more specific with what I do and don't like. I know a lot of my friends when I they'll just say something related to like shonen or isekai, and I generally will shut them down. Not that I like absolutely despise or hate those shows. It's just I'm very very picky when it comes to that. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm better than people. I started watching Prince of Tennis and Naruto and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh all when I was a kid, so I'm not better than an average man. I grew up with all those things, but the more I grew into watching anime and the medium, like one of the big shows that really was changed a lot of my perspective on anime, which March comes in like a lion. Like that show is like it resonated with me so much, and it really changed the perspective on like the storytelling of anime and what it meant to me. My other like two top three shows would be Your Lie in April, which is very similar, and then Neon Genesis Evangelion, which, if you notice with all three, they're very sad black-haired boy anime shit. So that's generally the niche I'm in, but I try to open it up more. But I'm super into character-based storytelling. I really, whenever the characters are very secondary to the story, I find it a bit more difficult to watch. Not that I can't appreciate ones that aren't like that, but for me, that's the type of things I resonate with more and enjoy more. Like to give you an example, like even though the world building of Avatar: The Last Airbender is like so wide and expansive and great, like the characters are what make the show for me because of what it allowed me to express and understand about myself. And I think like it's not an anime, but I would say it's the most important show in my life as a young Asian kid growing up in America.
I feel like for a lot of us, that's the case.
It is a really important show.
Yeah.
Just another thing that's like really important to me is anime production stuff. Now, the more that I've worked in kind of the film industry and then see more about the production side of anime, it's very fucked up. It's very not great. I don't love it, but we're going to talk about it definitely a bit more than your average podcast because I think knowing where your anime comes from really affects how you might perceive it because you'll see where struggles might be or how timelines affect things or all of that stuff. On a side note, I play a ton of games and a ton of like anime type games. I play the Persona series like any average Asian guy that's nerdy. I love them. I think they're great. I think that they're not like my absolute favorites, but I love how character focused they are. But a game that's even more character focused is Trails, and I will probably talk about Trails a ton on this show. But I do not recommend people to play it unless they have 600 hours or so to spare.
Which is why I'm holding on.
Yeah, we'll get to it at some point. But to get into what this show is, each month or so, we're going to be doing this, and we're going to be talking about three main shows that we're going to force each other to watch one individually and then kind of have a shared watch each month. And the goal is to kind of, share our love for the shows we've seen, but also expand and broaden our views. And we really want to get like deep dives into these things. We don't want to really just kind of lightly touch on like the most popular anime at the time. Like as much as I like think that Dan Dan and Freyren and Apothecary Diaries are good shows, I really can't stand another podcast or like anime YouTuber being like, oh, this is pretty good. I like X thing, blah blah blah. This is great. Because I think there's so much more to dive into with the medium, and there's so many shows that aren't unpopular, but it's like the fifth most popular show in a season, and it just goes completely under the radar because like the most popular shonen got a season 2 during that time or something like that.
True.
So the first show we're going to be talking about was decently popular at the time, but I think has dropped off in popularity despite actually getting a season 2 right now, which is Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. And if you are unfamiliar with the show completely, please bear with us. Hold on the name. Just please hold. But I'm going to give some production details about this, that this was made by Cloverworks, who does a lot of these type of coming of age, very pretty, like, character focused type shows. They've done like Horimiya, and I'm trying to think of another one. But Horimiya is the one that comes to mind that's very similar in terms of, not exactly art style, but in terms of look. It's based on a light novel written by Hajime Kamoshida, who also wrote, and again, hold on this name, Pet Girl Sakurosa. Again, music's by Fox Capture Plan, which you added that they're a popular Japanese rock band.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that at all.
Yeah, they're a popular Japanese rock band. And I know, like, this is a relatively popular but still niche anime that came out in the last year or two that I want to say. It's called Ameku MD Doctor Detective.
Mm-hmm.
And Like there's like a small group of people who actually really enjoys this anime, and they happen to like they did music for that one too, which is I felt like a good,
Yeah,
shout out for them because it's a well sounding anime.
yeah. The people who have watched Amiku MD love it, from what I know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have exactly the most popular or like high up scores, but I know the people who I've talked to that have watched it have told me they really like it. And the director for this show is Soichi Masui, who, from what I looked up, has mostly done storyboarding on most other things. So this seems like to be his big directing debut.
Yeah.
So to set the stage for what Rascal Does Not Dream is that it really disguises itself as this silly rom-com type anime off the bat. Like within the first 10 minutes, you're like, oh wow, she's wearing a bunny suit. Oh wow, like sister con bullshit. And it's like, you really think it's going to do a lot of that stuff, but it goes away within the first 10 minutes. Like all the clickbait title, all of that stuff becomes very secondary to the supernatural occurrences that happen around Sakura called adolescence syndrome. Sakura, our main character, is a victim of it. He suffered from it in the past and is mostly recovered from it, but he can't really help himself from being attracted to those people who also suffer from that same fate. It's a little bit of savior complex, a little bit of love, but a whole lot about puberty. Um, Really, what makes this show so important to me is that the character stories and the relationships that evolve from it are so powerful, and I think are very, very relatable for something that is generally unexpected. Is what I wanted to show you the show for, because I know that coming of age isn't exactly like, you don't dislike it, but it's not the first thing you go to watch. And the show's kind of suffers from when it was popular on release. It was like, oh, everyone's gonna like watch a bunny girl show, and then it becomes a very serious, very dramatic show about the pains of puberty. And I think the popularity died down for how sad it became. Um,
Yeah, I feel like right now within the anime realm, there's certainly like a big like fan service ish kind of
yeah,
demand coming from the youngins. Not that we're old, by the way, but yeah, they like a lot of people went into the show with a certain like expectation,
yeah,
which was unfortunately a more fan service based
or
expectation,
even just like a lighter mood to it.
or like a yeah more like kind of you know light-hearted jokes here and there,
Hmm.
not serious, like just almost like a better made filler anime in a sense, but
But
it's not the case. That's certainly not the case, and that shows itself real quick.
yeah,
Like,
the supernatural parts come first and foremost, even more so than the characters most of the time. Um, how do you feel about the very over the top storytelling that is done with the supernatural parts? Like, I know it has Station in the title, and I know it's very clearly going to be about adolescence, but the supernatural themes make these like seemingly very teenage,
mm,
unimportant
mm.
problems become really large and important. That I think that for a coming of age show, like I know there's other shows that do it in a similar way, but not in the way where it like is really tearing apart the lives of the people involved.
Yeah, no, it well, first of all, I wasn't clueless about the show, as
Hmm.
in like I didn't know any plot points or whatever, but I knew about the show. Multiple friends of mine suggested it before Jared did as well, and like I only heard good things about it. That being said, I really did not expect it to go the supernatural, like as supernatural as it does. And don't get me wrong, by the way, it doesn't go like hey superpowers and stuff like that and like all bonkers. It's just like the involvement of the supernatural is something that I didn't expect at all, I guess, and it is there, but it certainly adds to the story. And then what I liked other than those elements is basically it is a drama. It is like a coming of age like drama story, but it's not only drama, like
Yeah.
back to back to back, where like you just try to hold on to the like dark blue feeling, and it's like, when is this gonna be over? Like, no, it has its lighthearted moment, it has its funny moments, it makes you laugh, it makes you kind of feel, oh, this type of stuff actually happens day to day as well. And then some drama, which pulled me in a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a certain warmth to the characters that typically a more dramatic, like they're the two routes of these shows often is like what I might call very seishun, like, I think of Hyoka, I think of even Your Lie in April in terms of the happy parts of Your Lie in April, where like positive, smiling, I want to live youth, cherry blossoms, greatness. And maybe more of the other route is typically like Anohana is a show that we talked about where, it still is about cherry blossoms, but it's a lot about the characters' innate sadness, their scars and burdens. But the show really strikes a balance between making these characters seem very human but dealing with their problems as well. Like I think a lot of shows struggle to do both, and they either make their characters too focused and related to the plot, or they make their characters a bit too loose to the plot, and they kind of just don't have a relationship to it. And for me, a lot of it stems down to Sakura being such a great anchor point to the whole series. But it's really weird how they structure the show. Like it's for a cast of like it ends up being like 6 to 8 characters later on. You really only focus at one character at a time, and it's like super concentrated storytelling, which is similar to Anohana, but I think the difference really comes down to how you feel about the characters, which is like the less dramatic, like
Yeah.
less truly teenage like adolescence drama problems. And I think a thing that I noticed kind of in the translation with the show is the difference between like seishun and adolescence versus puberty. Like a lot of this is just like puberty and change and understanding the world that is different. Where it's like a lot of
True.
seishun shows are like about, oh my gosh, we're going to go to the school festival and we're going to do all of these things. It's about my first
Yeah.
love and it's about what am I going to do with my life. It's really about dealing with the problems that come when your life is changing and when you as a person are changing, which I think is super unique.
True. True. And then there's also and I always love shows like this when the situation revolving around the story happens because of like a specific connection to a character or their personality, or it directly kind of happens because of them, not in sense like the how should I put it, like the things you see throughout the story, like their personal problems, and then obviously these supernatural anomalies happening. They're always really well explained why that's happening and what's the cause within their personality and within their own like psychological struggles. It's not like they're having this problem which causes stress, and stress causes random anomalies. It's like every anomaly is specific to that character's specific problem. Like there's a direct connection with it and how that changed the reality basically. Because some animes, it's just like what's actually happening, and then the reason for it is not directly connected.
Yeah.
It caused stress, and when that character gets stressed,
They have to
that
unlock their
situation is
special
just, yeah,
power or
that
something. Yeah.
situation is just what happens. Like this is not like that. Whatever happens in the story, there is a reason and there is a good explanation for it.
Yeah, I think for me as a storyteller, the idea of the supernatural being focused and to explain the natural is really important, and a lot of that comes from how these stories are written. Is that the stories are serving the characters, and it's a very character-driven plot because it wants to really intimately deal with the burdens of someone who has dealt with something very specific, like for example with Kaide very early on it's with bullying, and with Mai it's being raised as a child actress and dealing with popularity and how you're viewed and the atmosphere around you, and how that then manifests as a feeling is really what becomes prominent.
Hmm.
It's not just about this idea of something supernatural that maybe is like a larger feeling. It is about what is that small feeling expanded upon into a supernatural way. And every character in this show is just like, they're so unique in terms of like a lot of other shows would make them sob stories, but they're really just people. Like they're people who with stories that come from, like they have like, I would say like a character that is a good example for this in the show is Koga the first year. Um, they really could have made it so that it's like, oh, this girl's so lovesick and overly obsessed and all these things, but she's just a girl who's trying to be normal, who's trying to understand where she belongs in life, you know, who maybe tries to fit in too much, but she cares a lot about the people around her and how she's perceived, and that's what then leads her to go down the route that she goes down. And I think so many other shows would really over dramatize her, like, and be like, oh my god, she's just so bullied and she's so like, you know, deals overly with her country accent and all these things. But a lot of that comes secondary to the real burden of just like, what is it like to want to fit in and then find someone that you're comfortable with, you know? And then,
Yeah.
you know, spoilers. I think we're just gonna start getting to the
Yeah,
spoiler
no, we
sections,
can.
but
Yeah, we can. We're gonna talk more openly about it now.
but the spoiler is that she gets rejected by Sakuta. And like that's such a painful feeling to be like, I found a new place in life, but I'm now been rejected. Not for anything that says about myself, but just the reality of life is that not everyone wants the exact same thing as you.
And don't get us wrong, Sakuto is a good dude,
Oh, I love Sakuta.
but he has a girlfriend. Okay, he's a man of loyalty. So obviously, when Koga asks him, he's like, "Nah, we're good. We're friends." But yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's like, and then within that situation, actually, I don't even think it's as simple as like she finding comfort or like a place where she can be herself and blatantly getting rejected. I feel like it's it's even more detailed in the sense that she is not necessarily getting fully rejected.
Yeah, that's the part that
Like
yeah.
they're friends, you know, and
Mhm.
like she kind of comes in terms with the fact that okay, like it's not 100% what she wanted, but what she gets is still something valuable and good, and like kind of teaches her a lesson in the sense that like even though everything's not pitch perfect and like the way she wants it, she still fits and can fit in these places.
Yeah, I think what's so beautiful about her part of the story is that she knows that she's in this lull, like, I don't know what we're doing, what we are space of like, I know he has a girlfriend, but I'm attracted to him and I care about him and I like that the space that we're in that we're pretending to date. And
Yeah.
that's why the days repeat, is it's something that she can't let go of. Like that's the kind of, you know, extrapolated storytelling that becomes really powerful. You know, I think maybe there are other ones that are a bit more on the nose, like Nodoka quite literally switching with Mai and becoming, you know, her sister and being like, I want to quite literally be with you, be you, and like, you know, but
Yeah.
a ton of it is about how these characters' feelings being extrapolated to something large. And I know that like while we talked about this show isn't being fully dramatic, it still is a quite dramatic show. And I think when you maybe are an adult and step back, like, you know, I'm 27 and I step back, it's like, yeah, it seems like, you know, childish like problems in a sense, but a lot of what for me personally, like I love these type of shows and I think they're very important. I actually have a recommendation. I don't like most anime YouTubers. I think most of them, and video essayists, I think most of them suck. But there is one who has like 10,000 subscribers. His
You
name is
can
Muxedo
bash him.
Task. Yeah.
You can bash Jared for saying that, by the way, no problem.
No, feel free to. There's a YouTuber called Muxedo Task who his most popular video is about why so many anime are about high school and about adolescence and all of these things. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a groundbreaking video or it introduces anything new, but it does it very succinctly. And I respect a lot of his work being super succinct and like explaining things faster than I would, as people can tell that I like to yap a lot. But I find it to be super important that these things that come up in your adolescence really define who you are later on, especially if you don't solve them. And it can, a lot of what happens with these characters is that their problems aren't solved by the end of like their mini like 3 episode arc. It's the way I think you and I described it was that Sakura works with them and he understands their problems to the point where he gets them to like the starting line of
Exactly.
learning to live with
Like
them.
he doesn't give them like a perfect solution to the point where like you watch this untanglement and like 2 episodes in now it's perfect and everything's good and it's never gonna come up again. Like no, it's very much still there with each character and like throughout the story or the season or everything in terms of content, I guess, you still see those problems or inclinations popping up from their reactions and movements. But it's just that Sakuta kind of gives them like a key where they can use it to basically unlock the locks
Mhm.
and eventually free themselves up from the shackles of their adolescence. But you know,
Yeah, can you tell he watches a lot of anime?
yeah,
uh,
I don't. That's no. Anyways, but yeah, so it's good because a lot of animes like this, you end up, you know, watching a problem get fixed in like 40 minutes, and you're like,
it's right before their death
yeah,
usually. In like in a
exactly,
shonen, it'd be like we condense them to their whole character arc, and backstory comes out in 20 minutes. And
exactly.
I think what I respect so much about this show is they have all of their characters kind of come back and maintain that relationship with Sakuta and the other characters, and you are aware of maybe some of their problems in the background still manifesting or how they feel, and it's really really powerful. Like I did not realize when I watched this show that watching Kaide's character arc would make me like genuinely like cry. Like Kaide's character arc was rough.
That was tough. Yeah,
I it's very few shows would take this very cutesy uwu girl and really make you feel and understand the need to fit in the way. I mean, a lot of these themes are the need to fit in, but it's I think Kaide specifically, it's such a brutal thing to watch because her like I can't remember what it is in Japanese, but like truant syndrome and being like stuck in your home is like a very common thing that's
or
manifested.
hikikomori.
Yes, that's what it
Yeah,
is. Has manifested a lot more, and it's such a I don't really fully personally relate to it, but it's such a powerful story that it feels like I can. And then the feeling of loss that Sakuta faces with it is just like it's that and Shoko's arc both destroyed me. We'll talk about the movies a little bit in a little bit about season 2, but um, for me, it's like Kaide's arc at the end of season 1 is really what like if there's anything to watch this show for, like it is such a unique experience to have this character slowly built up over time in all these other parts of the arcs, but not as the main character, like the main focus, and then have her whole thing then be unveiled in such a powerful way.
it's. I certainly wasn't expecting her arc to um to be like it is. I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. I just wasn't expecting what it is.
I
Is what
expected
I'm
her to
trying to
be
say.
cute, haha, lol, sister,
Exactly. It's
sister
the
character.
brother addicted. Yeah, like like I feel like this is before watching the movies cuz with movies I feel like Shoko comes like really close
Really close.
um to Kaede's story. But if we're talking about only about the first season, Kaede really like butchers it. Like it's like you're like, okay, this is like you watch this character and it's like, oh, that's not nice. Like, yeah, I can understand this, and then you give a similar reaction to another one, and then like Kaede is like comes in and you're like, ah, well, because it doesn't necessarily only concern her as well. Like
Yeah.
you kind of seen like their family dynamic, like not only Sakuta and Kaede as like brother and sister, but then their mom and dad comes into the picture
Mhm.
and you see their dynamic, even though it's not super detailed, like it gives you enough context to understand what's the dynamic, which is like, okay, like that in itself is a whole different situation as well. So it's really well thought, it's really well executed, and it makes you feel.
Yeah,
So
I think even the fact that they pull in like Mai and all of these other characters is like this is such a central point of the whole show that it's like, and the fact that it's then afterwards such a slow rebuild of Kaide as a person and just like the moments of loss is just so painful because it's not as simple as just he lost his sister. He's happy that his sister's back, and it's not a pure feeling of I'm happy or I'm sad. It's this needing to accept both at the same time is so overwhelming. And I will say the movies are very good and they're great, but it's really hard to match that. I've started the first 2 episodes of season 2, and it's kind of building up where it left off from the movies. Like it kind of like from movie 3 to season 2, it literally ends on like the same scene, and it kind of expects you to have seen the exact same thing that's happening. There's like a time skip of about like a year and a half or something,
interesting.
and it deals with slightly more mature, but kind of more of the same themes that is going forward. I will definitely talk about it more at some point when the season finishes, but I'm super excited to watch it further. But I do think that we've talked enough about my show because we
Yeah,
will talk about my show a lot. But
true.
on to the next section, which is Emre's Force Watch, which Baccano, you've been trying to get me to watch the show for a while.
I'm doing God's work, y'all.
I have a friend, shout out to my friend Kwando, who's tried to get me to watch this show for like 4 to 5 years, and I've just
It took me one shift, I guess, to force him into
but you
watching
did
it.
really have to convince me.
Yeah.
It's produced by Brainspace, and it's based on some light novels by Ryogo Narita, who's known for Durarara as well, but this was his original big thing. The music, which is quite good, is done by like a variety of composers: Makoto Yoshimori, Yuji Kazuura, and Akane Noguchi. They're kind of all known for smaller. One of the main things is that Yoshimori also did Natsume's and Durarara. I think the director works
Yeah.
pretty closely with him.
And for the people who knows that show, he also did Hamataro,
Which I don't
which
know.
if you know, you know,
Okay.
and it has really good music to it. I feel like Durarara has really good music too. I
Mhm.
really like Makoto Yoshimori's style and like the jazzy like music he does in general. So it's really like in my field of music taste anyways, but yeah, he knows his stuff, man.
Yeah. The director, Takahiro Omori, like I mentioned, worked on Natsume and Durarara with Makoto Yoshimori as well. But this was like their first big bout into it. And
Yeah.
an anime based on light novels is inherently going to be different than something based off of manga. You don't
Manga,
have any
yeah.
panels to work off of. You have like some key arts to work off of, but it's going to be a completely different beast. And so because this is Emre's section, I'll let him take the wheel.
Yeah. So we I didn't go into a super like hardcore description for this show. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a really heavily 1900s America, like gangster life, mafia life influenced show in terms of aesthetics and world building, which again I dig. It's really fun, and I always like Japanese take on American stuff. It's kind of comical, kind of fun. Some good, usually like niche details they do see, but yeah, it's a early 1900s set story that revolves around multiple characters again, which at first seems like a generic gangster mafia, you know, fight off or like territory war story, but it's actually revolved around much more historically stretched out situations as well as more again, supernatural stuff like alchemy and magic and immortality. And it is a ride. It is a ride. If you don't know about the show at all, just hit the play button. But yeah, that's basically a quick description of it. And to start off my first question, and by the way, if you all didn't notice by now, I really do dig into details about like music in anime and
Yeah,
sound
big sound
and
guy.
yeah, big sound guy here. How they've done it, details and stuff. So some questions are gonna be in that regards too. But yeah, to kick it off, basically, it's like what did that early 90s atmosphere added to the show in your opinion? Did it help it out? Did you feel that they were on point? And even though within the stylistic choices they made, which were super specific, there's like a lot of jumping points in the story. Like, because in a show like
Yeah.
this, which has a lot of like, okay, we're settling in this world, in this art style, in this, kind of visual language.
And then boom,
Yeah,
1930, and then boom, 1700s, and
you
then
don't
boom.
exactly, you don't necessarily see that kind of jump. So, how did that make you feel?
Uh, the show was a lot darker than what like I didn't know a ton about the show going into it. I've not seen Durarara before this. I had watched episode 1 maybe like 2 or 3 times, and I knew there was like gore and all these things, but I think the tone was a lot more serious than what I was expecting. It aligns a lot more with what we might consider to be like murder mystery, train like murder on a train type stuff. Uh, I knew it was going to be about crime, but I was a lot more like, oh, this will be like Isaac and Miria's vibe because I've seen like a lot of like gifs of them, and I will say that the change of settings and like the darkness, and then the later like the alchemy, really started to punch home like how like this is a lot more about a through line plot than anything else. Like there might be a lot of factions at play, and there might be a lot of characters, but those come very secondary to more of what it is, less of a story and more of an experience to me. Like it was really just about going on this ride and seeing all these characters come into play and play their parts. It feels, I guess, maybe even more theatrical is a way of putting it than less of a like a novel or more of a or like a show. For me, also like yeah, as we talked about, like the music really sticks out to me. I would say that in comparison to, and I'm gonna be quite honest, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty positive that the show was inspired by Cowboy Bebop. Is that the jazziness is like it's a really cool kind of fight vibe that they do similar to Cowboy Bebop. And then I kind of realized that a lot of it was the same song and beat. And then I was like, oh, I was a little less impressed because, I mean, it's unfair to compare it to Bebop, but Bebop has like unique fight scenes with unique tracks and all that
Hmm.
to each scene. And I was like, um, it's still really great. And, it really sets a tone that I think is incredibly unique. I don't think there's any other, like, despite pulling in from inspirations from like Full Metal Alchemist, Cowboy Bebop, and all these other shows in a similar-ish vein, it's very unique. It's a very fusion-y type show. There aren't many shows that would be as bold as it. And I think a lot of shows would then take that vibe and make it more fun, which I was super intrigued by how dark it ended up being. Like
Hmm.
we have all these factions that play in, with all these different motives, and it's all very serious. And for me, it's like the characters are just. It was an experience I wasn't ready for, to say the least.
Okay. Yeah, like throughout the show, you definitely, at least back in the day when I was watching it for the first time, like yourself, I wasn't expecting it to be as dark as it is. Um, though, with that, even though the show is, like you mentioned, revolving around not necessarily around characters, but like a specific situation, I guess, or a multiple branched line,
Mm-hmm.
basically. characters are still really interesting to me. As in what their take on their lives and situation is, especially with like alchemy and all that stuff coming into play, and like you start to see how certain characters respond to what, and how certain characters kind of end up in that situation, which sometimes lightens up the mood too, especially with Isaac and Miria.
Yeah.
Those, I don't know if everyone will like them
I'm
as
50-50 on
characters.
them. Like I like them sometimes, but other times I'm like, dear God, we were just in the most like a big shootout. And they're like, oh man, hey guys, how's it going?
I really enjoy that aspect. I feel like, because I feel like in some animes, like characters like Isaac and Miria, they, in a sense, like destroy the mood.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, for me, they never do that in this show. Like, they certainly act like fools in serious situations. It's just, it doesn't kill the mood for me,
For me,
and
they're
I
weirdly
enjoy
related
it.
to the plot. Like
Yeah.
they're like these type of characters. If you think of like, I mean, they're almost like a Team Rocket type thing, but it's like the difference between them and Team Rocket is like they have like legitimate implications on the plot. Like you don't know if they're just gonna be like, oh, they're gonna blast off at the end of the show. Like they're actually involved in what happens. Um, and I think a lot of how these characters interact and what makes the show what I would say more of that experience in a ride is that the factions that play kind of all have simple motives. It's like we want to free our leader, or I just want to kill, or
Hmm.
this is the person I'm trying to save or get revenge on, or do all of these things. Is that it, in going back to that like murder mystery, train murder mystery type thing. That's kind of how it is when you see like oh, this character has this motive, which is going to run into this clashing motive, and it's going to reveal that everyone on the train kind of isn't fully innocent, and how is it's a lot less about like who's right but more who's going to come out on top. Like I don't think anyone fully agrees with every character being like completely moral, but it's like
Yeah.
the way I described it was like it's like a Baccano's like this fucked up science experiment of putting a bunch of crazy people on a train and just seeing what happens, and it's like a hell of a ride, and it's crazy, but it's I would say that I think if like if I was a different type of viewer, it would have like been more exciting to me. But I
Mhm.
wasn't as inspired by the show.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was curious about, because like you usually tend to prefer much more like character driven, and stories that revolve around those characters type of anime, and Baccano is certainly not character driven. Like
yeah,
it's a story that happens and characters happen to be in that story, which is not a common thing.
yeah. I mean, for me, I think one thing, not to say anything negative about Brainbase's production value, I think what I've seen previously with Brainbase's work, because I think they've also done Mawaru Penguin Drum, is that their animation style and or just at least how they do like cost effectiveness
Mhm.
is they get the scene done, but I'm never really blown away by anything that they do. It's like very much the logical, correct, like cost efficient choice that achieves what you want but doesn't really blow you away. And something so stylized and such a unique experience, I think, would have done a lot better in the hands of maybe a bolder studio that would have taken
Mhm.
risks. Like I compare it to even like I'll talk about the show more later. Is like Don to Don. It's like when you compare the paneling in Don to Don versus what the actual show is, it takes a lot of bold risk and dynamic cameras and like crazy animation style. That I think that if I wish this show was slightly more stylized like that, because I
Mhm.
think the
Mhm.
feeling, despite having this dark tone over it, is very stylish, cool, smooth, while having rough edges with the combat.
Mhm.
And I think that part of it, I think, lowered my experience of this show because I was looking to get that that vibe and feeling. Well, I was
Mhm.
while the music really does do it for me, I was a bit disappointed by the production value, which I think is a like in more character focused shows, it's less important. It's more about
True.
I guess directing choices, while the production value in a action type experience and ride really is you know really related to that.
Mhm. No, I agree. There are certainly rough edges with this show, especially like if you watched Durarara,
Hmm.
and because like you can understand Bacano took inspiration from shows like Full Metal Alchemist or like Cowboy Bebop, when you watch Durarara, you're like, ah, okay, like there's a reason why he did Durarara, and you definitely see the touches they got from doing Baccano, or like I guess the stylistic choices and then improvements over it. Because again, there's a decent bit amount of time between the two as well. Like I want to say almost like 7-8 years,
Yeah.
if not more. So it's like it certainly is rough around the edges in certain aspects, but what they had in their head, in their brains as a vision, whether it be music, whether it be drawings, whether it be stylizing the world, environment, they somewhat executed pretty good. And funnily enough, anyone basically who worked on this project becomes someone
Yeah.
continuing on,
Especially in the
which
voice
is,
acting department. Yeah.
like which is a wild thing. Like you,
Baccano's a big, like, if you look at the cast and you look at the even some of the like production side, a lot of this is like their big starting point. Because
yeah,
while I don't want to say they made mistakes during this show, it definitely felt like there were things that were underwhelming. Like the first scene that comes to mind is when oh god, the incredibly violent guy. Um, we have a sheet for this exact reason.
yeah, exactly. Too many characters.
Yes, a lot of the shows we were watching have too many characters.
Lad Russo.
Yes, Lad. The first when he's boxing at the camera, I don't think
Yeah.
that works in the same way that they wanted to.
Yeah.
And I think they have there's this learning curve that comes along with the show. That I want to compare it to, like, it's a very auteur show, because it comes from one writer and one director who then are working together, and then even with a composer as well on both Baccano and Durarara. There's a similar thing with which I think we'll watch probably at some point, which is Mawaru Penguin Drum and Revolutionary Girl Utena, because Revolutionary Girl Utena is done by Kuniko Ikuhara. It has the same composer. I'm unsure about. I believe Kuniko Ikuhara. He's the director and the creator of the show. I'm unfamiliar if he's done all of the writing for it, but they have, like, Revolutionary Girl Utena, in my opinion, is a bit rough around the edges. I haven't finished the show. I'm about like 2/3 of the way through. Partially because it is so rough around the edges. Whereas Mario Penguin Drum is, I feel like, such a unique and whole experience that you really notice when a production team that's worked together before has learned from their mistakes. Like, it's, which is weird enough that, I'm talking about Mario Penguin Drum in such a bright light when it's also done by Brainspace. It was done later, but, like,
Okay.
I think the team that was brought on was a bit different.
Okay, well, that being said, with all the details and experience they got from Baccano, for what it is, try it out for yourself. But I feel like we
I think
stayed on this topic long enough.
Yeah. I'll say my last one, Baccano, is
yeah.
I think it's good. I would say if you asked me about the show, I wouldn't not recommend it to you. I feel like it's good. If you want to watch it, you should watch it. But if you came to me asking for a recommendation, Baccano is not first to mind.
Yeah, if you like myself, if you like the gangster mafioso kind of world building with cool jazzy vibes and an interesting enough story that carries the series, have a go at it.
Yeah, I think you stay for the world.
Yeah,
And you bear with the story and characters a bit more.
Yeah.
Or I say you bear with, like, the through line a bit more, but you stay for the world.
it's definitely those foundational animes that I think you should watch if you like stuff like 91 Days or like Gangster or all of those type of shows. Like it's kind of the predecessor, like
For the
within
modern version of it.
yeah,
especially,
exactly. So give it a go, see it for yourself, and let us know. But yeah, going on.
And now we're talking about the show that made us want to start a podcast. Honestly,
Exactly.
this is God. To introduce Orb on the movements of Earth is incredibly difficult because this is such a big show, and it kind of surprised me. To start off, this show is like produced by Madhouse, like which is one of the top tier animation studios. But the crazy thing is, it's also on Netflix, but it literally didn't like. At least the last time I checked, doesn't have a trailer, and it's not
Still
marketed.
doesn't.
Not marketed at all. People only watch it because a friend they know recommends it to them. Like it is crazy to me. Um, the show is based on a manga, which was written by Uota. He was a young writer inspired by Bakuman, which is the manga, anime, and manga. And the manga was so good that it won the Tezuka Osama Cultural Prize, like grand prize. And that's a pretty big deal. Tezuka
Is
Osama, kind of, the guy who the grandfather of a lot of animation and manga, who wrote Astro Boy. Pretty important show. Um, the music for this show too is insane. The most important thing to me is that the soundtrack is done by Kensuke Ushio, and Emre is the music guy. But for me, when it comes to talking about Kensuke Ushio, it's like this guy is insane. He has done the
yeah.
music for Chainsaw Man, Dan Da Dan, Ping Pong. He's got such a unique style, as in he doesn't have one. He's able to mold himself to what the show needs. Like you think of Chainsaw Man's melancholy or chaotic scenes, and then the weirdness of Dan Da Dan, and then the upbeatness of Ping Pong. Like they're all so different, but
He is. I'm sorry for kind of jumping the gun, but he is really good at understanding and analyzing what the scene needs to push the story one step further than what it is, and does that.
And it's not even that when you describe someone like that, you think, oh, so their music comes secondary. No, his
No,
music can
no.
stand out in a scene. Like that's the craziest part of it, is that the way I would describe him is he's your favorite composer's favorite composer, because I've seen Yuki Hayashi, as well as who's done My Hero and Haikyuu, so ginormous anime, and then Sawano Hiroyuki, who has done 86 and Solo Leveling. Like these are your typical anime style music that are
Yeah.
big and hype and great and all these things. And I love them; they're great composers. But Kensuke Ushio has some very special work that I think his work is very timeless, and there's something really unique in how it connects to the shows. Um, and less to say that the opening is also probably my favorite song of the show, but it's not even done by him.
He's like a drummer who knows when to do solos and then when to play simple
Yes.
background beats.
Yeah, he has.
That's important.
Yeah, the opening of the show, which is absolutely iconic, is Kaiju, I believe is what it's called, by Saka Nation.
Mhm.
And the ending is also pretty good too. It's done by Yorishika, who I know is pretty popular as well.
Yeah.
But the director of this show, Kenshi Shimizu, has only done one thing, which is Parasite the Maxim, which I personally didn't like, but I wouldn't say it's his fault. I didn't love the show.
I like it. I like it.
It's just not really up my alley. But we've talked so much about all of these other things, but what the fuck is Orb on the Movements of Earth? What is this show that makes it? And the setting of Orb is in fictional 1300s, 1400s, during the reign of the definitely not Catholic Church, and is about the definitely not Spanish Inquisition and how science and religion have this relationship with each other. Orb follows the story and ultimately the suppression of heliocentrism during this time period. It's historical fiction, so it's not all true exactly, but it relates a similarish type feeling. But what makes Orb so unique, and as a story that I'm sure it's been done in other places, but makes it so special, is that heliocentrism is the main character of Orb. And I know that sounds weird and a little pretentious maybe, but the show puts into perspective how all of these different groups and people that come in with various goals and ideals will serve one cause still. And that the goal of this show is to show the thread that's carried on, the smallest thread that is carried between all of these characters. And that's really that's the point of the show that makes it so good.
And then I want to add on, even though they end up servicing the same purpose, they actually end up. They don't. Throughout the show, you see a lot of characters serve the same purpose, or work for the same cause, I guess, but not because they actively choose so. Like they some of them are just minding their own business and they end up working for that cause, which is one of the elements that took me away when watching it. And that's why I was like, yo, bro, have you seen this show called Orb?
Yeah.
Go watch
Yeah.
it.
Part of it
Like,
is that the conflict of just getting people to stick to an ideal is a
exactly.
large part of it. Is that getting these people onto the journey who
Hmm.
don't even realize they're going to be so passionate about it. And I think it deals with such. While there are a lot of big characters in the show, and a lot of the focus is on these mundane characters with small goals and small ideals that ultimately end up being so important in the scope of heliocentrism.
Yep. So that being said, with talking about small characters and seeing more mundane things and how they live, all that stuff. Going into the show, you watch. I think it was like the first 3-ish
I think I watched
episodes,
like 3 to
something
4
like that. Yeah,
episodes before we first talked about it.
and then like you watch this unheard anime, basically,
More or less.
that has a really heavy world and story, and then not just that, but the main character, air quotes, the main character is establishing a whole new, like in this case, a belief system in the world he exists. And I don't know, like what was that something you were expecting going into it? Like how did that caught you? Did it caught you off guard? Like what did it make you feel in that sense?
I mean, getting into a show like Orb, I think the way that you and I both, when you see the poster, go, "Oh, it's gonna be a cool, like comfy show about maybe astronomy and about how we see the stars and how that was perceived." The show starts with Kenjiro Tsuda, one of the most legendary voice actors in the world, as playing Novak, torturing someone and being like, "How many fingernails do you want to lose today?" Basically. And I don't think there are many shows who are willing to do that. And I think a lot of other shows would make it very torture porny, but a lot of it is just very unpleasant. A lot of this show is very unpleasant to watch and very, um, you know, because like Orb is a dark show, right? But it's not really focused on like the gore or directed in a way where it's like trying to be like actiony and like show off all this blood and violence. It's very much grounded, which like it's not an intricate post-apocalyptic world. It's so mundane that the atmosphere feels heavier than usual. Like I think when you watch like a post-apocalyptic show, like with a young adult type setting or shonen type setting, you kind of can feel that hope still from the younger main character or some through line or thread. But no, Orb is just like, man, that's life. And I think it still finds a way that even though a lot of these mundane characters, like in comparison to those young adult shows, it's usually like a kind of godchild type, oh, he's going to be the one type character. No, a lot of the main characters in Orb are mundane people who just have this small light of curiosity. And that's what will drive the show and kind of change the perspective of it. Like watching these people who are just normal have their views challenged, and it's that's what really makes the show. Is that
Shout out Oxy.
yeah, it's like what makes the show is watching people who are normal, who aren't involved, challenge themselves to become someone even if they don't realize it.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, going back at it. First of all, I'm going to just get this out of the way, but go watch it. Just go watch it. Like this was the reaction I gave to Jared when I told him about this show. Like I don't know how this show become under the radar. I don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows about this show's production and PR work, to be honest. So I'm just gonna stop here. But
I mean, there's a lot of things I know about why this show is not more popular than it is, and it's
well, we have our like yeah, you rationalize things and like you're like okay, I can get why, but like anime being anime, especially now, according to Netflix most recent um status, 50% of their users watching anime one way
Yeah,
or another.
150 million was what it was for worldwide.
So it's like, why and how? But
I mean, like
hmm,
let's be real. Orb as a show, just like it's not marketable. Like it's when you have a show that's this dark and it doesn't really stick to like one like iconic character or image or all these things, and it breaks like a decent number of conventions. Like it's not the first and only show to do this, but it breaks a lot of conventions.
oh, it doesn't stop.
And yeah, but it what makes Orb good is it doesn't shine within the first like while I think the first 3 to 4 episodes are great and it has a lot of really powerful quotes, what
Hmm.
makes Orb incredible doesn't really manifest until like 10 to 15 episodes in when everything is coming together. Because
True.
Orb sacrifices everything for this one through line of heliocentrism. Like it
Mm.
sacrifices everything for that one goal and cause. And I have so much respect as a storyteller for that because there are so many other shows where it's like, oh, this character needs a certain amount of screen time, or we need to make like this location really popping for world building, or like do like all of it is
Mm.
for this one cause of like I want the feeling of passing on the torch to be everything, and that's gonna like be related to sacrifice, and it's gonna be related to writing 3 episodes and then those 3 episodes not mattering, like or like not mattering, but like being forgotten. Part of what Orb is about forgetting. Is like there are certain people on that thread that do remember, but like
We don't remember. It's too many people.
it's
No,
a
I
lot.
hear.
I mean, but
Yeah.
like a lot of these people, like I guess the way it is that history forgets them to
Yeah.
some extent. You know, history
True.
forgets all. If you put the perspective of what Orb is as a show, history has technically forgotten about all of it. Is the framing that is put in later on, but
Which might as well be the case. So.
yeah, I mean, it's the restraint of the storytelling is what makes Orb, but marketing something that restrains itself so much is really hard. And I don't know, like, what do you think about a show that's going to do that? Because I don't think that as someone who loves that and respects it, like the restraints, like I think that's like a general theme about a lot of these shows is that there's a
Mm.
certain amount of restraint in what they want to do, but like the restraint on Orb is something else.
Well, yeah. Well, especially. Okay, I'll like take it from the top. So first of all, you like it's pretty normal, or I guess from a perspective, these do come off as restraints or like some like super tight framed, I don't know, planning for them on their end, um which caught me off guard as well, the way they did it, because like I said, I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting a chill, lighthearted, like, oh, stars, how
Yeah.
beautiful, amazing, science, woohoo kind of show. And it's nope, not even close.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it is beautiful, and it's stars are really nice in the show as well, but it's not.
I mean,
It's not the way I thought it was. And as far as giving up on some, or what other producing houses and directors might think as killing your darlings in a
mhm.
sense, I feel like that actually kind of gives a freedom to the show. I feel like we don't, like, yes, it feels when you think about it like a restraint, but on the contrary, actually it gives a new possibility how you can further develop a story and tell a story, if that makes sense, and like how you can take an approach where you don't necessarily see, because regardless of how many characters you have, usually you still stick to those characters, like, and because I'm not talking about, like, something like Tokyo Revengers, where like a dude here or a biker there dies and like you're sad. It's like Orb butchers people.
Yeah.
Um, but that gives so much freedom to the story itself, regardless of the characters. That really comes down to the fact that like these characters are only tools to serve the cause. Even Novak, which is like the villain,
Mm-hmm.
quotes and quotes, of the story, ends up being a crucial point for the progress. And that's why I think like it's not actually a restraint. It kind of breaks the cage and sets the bird free, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my typical definition of is this story serving the characters or are the characters serving the story? The characters in this case are serving the story, but
Yeah.
they're definitely still characters. The main like if you're a writer and you're let's say like taking a writing class, you will hear this very often. Especially when you're stuck in the hero's journey mindset, which will, quite frankly, limit you way too much, is that these are insanely passive protagonists. Like if we're talking about the protagonist of our show, like being Raffle and Oxy and Draka, they aren't doing things as much. They're very much.
No.
I would say Raffle's decently active, but like Oxy especially is very passively doing things. He doesn't have a strong motive. Like these are things that you would get butchered for in a writer's room. Like people would hate it. But because they're so passive, it allows them to take perspective on the world around
Yep.
them in a way that is super unique. And what this show does and how it frames these main characters of like the scholars, like in a more typical, let's say, storytelling function of like, I think Hubert, Badeni, and I would say even Schmidt would probably be the more main characters of each of those arcs
Yeah.
if you were looking at it as a traditional storytelling, right?
True,
Those would
true,
be
true,
more the
yeah.
focus. They're characters who are doing things with action, who have knowledge and power. But I think the way that we've learned even in history is that the things that end up sticking around are not always the texts and like, knowledge and actions of scholars, but it's often the secondary or even tertiary people around them who like, write a diary or like, have like, a take on something or provide like, shelter for them. Those people shockingly provide so much value to history that isn't always on the front page, but is in like it's in spades and how much
Yeah.
is in the actual details of that history and that provides so much to it. Like Oxy's book being passed along for so long is something that's like incredibly important, and the storytelling and pacing of how it takes into account what these characters are providing to the plot and understands exactly when their time is up, right?
Yeah.
And let's
That's the way to put
let's rip
it.
the band-aid off. Let's get we've been hinting about it, but let's just get into this, the open discussion spoilers and all that. The main character of the show, Raffle, your lovely 12-year-old child, fucking dies within 3 episodes by suicide.
And he chooses that, yeah.
He chooses by suicide to die. And there's no other show that is going to do that very often. Like, it's such a bold choice to be like, this character's writing is done, and we need to get to a new arc. And Raffle is, despite being like, let's say, more of the poster child of the show, is gone.
Yeah.
And it's like such an insane choice to make as a writer to have then go on to a character like Oxy, who's super passive, doesn't know what he wants, but then use him as a tool to be like, okay, in a world where all these other people around you have these motives, what do you want now?
That's
Right?
that's the good part though. Like that's what I meant by like setting it free, cuz like in most shows and like stories nonetheless, whenever you start watching it or reading it, we're focused to one character's perspective and their approach, and probably their philosophy of how it should be. But in Orb, and I actually I wanted to say that too. In Orb, first of all, you're not limited by those because there isn't necessarily a main character. Even Rafal, the poster boy, like you said, gets killed off within 3 episodes, and then because of that, characters can be passive, but still give substantial value to the story. Because I feel like even though they don't do a lot of action, they kind of force you to think more philosophically than you would in a regular show. Like some questions they ask, and I know you're gonna mention a certain scene But some questions they asked and some moments in the show where they basically self doubt. It's just it forces you to think. Like if I was watching this show in my teens, like that would be like a
Whoa, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be like a foundational stone in my personality. And like that's I feel like that's because we don't have a main character, and that's because they don't have a lot of action but a lot of thought and a lot of meaning behind certain scenes, like philosophy. They
Yeah.
basically have philosophy behind whatever they do.
A lot of the conversations have so much baked into them.
Exactly.
And like while so many people will preach it's not about, the destination, it's about the journey. No other show does it like Orb, where it's like these characters like so like a shonen type show or even a show like Rascal Does Not Dream
Hmm.
has a direction. You know where it's going. It's about puberty, coming of age. It's very pointed. With heliocentrism, sure, there's a point of okay, it's gonna get discovered, but it's such a winding path with so many points of failure that you truly have to wander. And there is literally a quote in the show from Yolenta that is keep wandering. Wandering is how you find what you want. And
Hmm.
that is so much about like what the show is about is that I mean, you really see this with Oxy as a character, is that he doesn't know half the time. He's like, I'm just doing this. And I think it's what Bedeni should do until he really spends time thinking about what does he believe in? Why is he so attached to this cause? Why does he gain an attachment to the cosmos in the way he does as someone who fears it and doesn't like believe in the heavens? Like Oxy really is what for me makes this show of like a lot of the philosophy and the conversations with him and Bedeni. Like obviously the conversation I have to talk about is heliocentrism is my faith. Like the conversation
Yeah.
being set up as like, an academic who's so stalwart and so believing, but then saying that like, isn't then that believing life is like faith or like academia is like faith and unquestionable. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. Where it's like there are so many academics who will then confound their ideas and beliefs in religion, basically. Like
Exactly.
as like this it really changes your perspective on so many things because you're following the character's ability to question things. Like that is really what like I guess science is about is
Hmm.
questioning things. And there's again another quote about questioning where it is like oh god, I've lost it. Oh yes, it's how do you define it's not exactly about questioning, but it's how do you find freedom? Or how do
Yep.
you define freedom? And it's the ability to ask that, which is like
Hmm.
it's not like it's done in such simple words too. I think there are a lot of other quotes that might do it longer or more long-winded, but it's like um
No,
god.
it puts it doesn't sugarcoat it. It doesn't like in a sense romanticize it. It just puts it in front of you and be like, have you thought about this?
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of those conversations will are baked into the have these quotes kind of like ready and like that's what the conversation is
Yeah.
leading towards. um god, it's just
Just give it a I feel like this is such a rich story, and again I'm using the word too much for this, but it's rich in terms of philosophical ideas clashing against each other or kind of further questioning and developing each other, that you'd have to watch this show multiple times
yeah.
till you can actually do just and like comprehend and understand and acknowledge everything that was given to us and asked to us, the audience. Like it's rich in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people from a storytelling perspective is if you have two characters who are understandably in their own way, like rationally right in the rights, I don't think that like the Spanish Inquisition, while they are cruel and like it's put in a perspective, especially with Novak, where it's like, yeah, no, these people are heretics, like, and it's he's overly cruel and maybe a bit insane about certain things, but his perspective is that he's trying to keep the peace, and that these are people who are not trying to do that. But at the same time, that curiosity and that wild curiosity of heliocentrism then clashes with that idea of keeping the peace. And when you have, like you say, these philosophical ideas coming together, you have to ask further and further questions. And a large part of the show it becomes about what it means to be human in relation to religion, and especially about the fear of death. Like, I think another one of my favorite quotes, or like things that Oxy says, is that he has seen a lot of death in his life. He's a mercenary. He's someone who has killed a lot of people, and the two times he's seen people that are happy and ready to die are two people who died for a cause and
Yeah.
died for heliocentrism. And I'm like, that's such a powerful idea, that it's like how we perceive the fear of death and how we live our life is so how our feelings are related to death, and how what we're willing to die for or what we stake our life on are so intertwined in how we'll do small things even.
Yeah. It's like even in the show, because you know kind of like the people who died without like with I guess peace in their mind and heart are the ones that actually had a cause or served the cause, knowing it, wanting it, and then kind of died off. Even in the show, like again going back to Rafal episode 3, even in the show, like Novak, like you see that interaction, like you see a person Novak who does certain things because he knows it's the safe thing to do, not necessarily because he believes it one way or another, but because he has a specific goal, which is, we could argue, survival in a sense within that world where church rules. And then on the opposite end of the table, we have this 12-year-old kid, which does not care anything about surviving, but only about the survival of the idea.
Only a 12-year-old would dare to move the world.
Exactly, is what is the one of my, and I feel like our favorite quotes from the show. And it's like, even in that scene, you see Novak being like, but why would you, like, why? Like, he can't
comprehend
comprehend what's going on within that side of the table. And Ruffle is like,
Yeah,
you know, like it's the normal thing to do. Like, you see these moments. So
that scene is so powerful to me because
yeah,
it's a 12-year-old boy who is unshaken and unwavered. Meanwhile, the mercenary who's probably killed and tortured hundreds of people is wavering and shaking and does not
exactly.
know what he wants and is confused by something. And that really sets the tone of there are people in this world who know what they want and those who don't. And it's fine to be either, but the importance of it is finding and wandering and looking
Yeah.
for it. And
And being open to it.
yeah, it's the journey of the show is just like like I think we even haven't talked about Draka, who is a character I think is a bit harder to like.
Yeah.
But even she has some very important quotes and a lot of her feelings and emotions. That like a quote that she has is like, well, if the front, like I believe it's like the Liberation Front or whatever, is going to carry on her goals, I will carry on her feelings, right? And that's a large part about how these movements sustain themselves, is that it can't just be the goals. Like we've seen even in like real life history, is that groups that sustain themselves simply based on goals don't always succeed. It's a lot of it that are very passionate groups that have a very strong ideal that is related to a feeling. I mean, if you think about America, it's like freedom is the feeling, whatever. But those
the American dream.
but like it's related to a specific feeling
Yeah.
someone has, which is, how do I want to go about the world? And those are the ones that manifest themselves and succeed. And I think that a character like Draka, despite her arc being so very short, like as every single main character is, and
Yeah.
besides Oxy, but basically every single character has a short arc, is like her arc is so intense and powerful because she has to learn very quickly what she wants. Like I think, yeah, with Draka's character, I was definitely thinking I was going to dislike her more just because I was so attached to Oxy, like everyone is, that her arc really does surprise you as someone who becomes surprisingly passionate about something due to her relationship with Yolenta, even how short-lived it is.
Which is, one of many beautiful points
Yeah.
the show has. Because in Draka's case, she is not necessarily open-minded about her world view being questioned,
She
or
wants money.
possibly,
Yeah.
being like, finding a different truth, but she's forced by Yolenta, and like by, in a sense, Schmidt,
Yeah.
like
I mean, when
like
you're being, I think something she realizes is when you're being chased by other people to the
yeah,
death,
like
money
they're
doesn't matter.
exactly. It's like, and those two characters, they force her to see that. Like it's like, and by the end, like, with the scene with the scene with Schmidt, she is like, I'll become Yolenta's heart
Yeah.
if you become her like ideas and like rationalism, then I'll become her heart. And that really, you know tells us how she changed, forced to change, and become something bigger than this kid who unfortunately dealt with some untasteful things and ended up basically taking money as our god.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about Draka as well is that she's not just, again, like I think good storytelling is that she doesn't abandon those ideas completely. She still
No,
has that savviness about her of how they can make it, with the printing press, like how do we make ends meet here? How can
exactly.
we divide and conquer for ourselves, even if it's a big. She's greedy. She's definitely a greedy character. She wants it all, but she's still able to evaluate what is and what isn't possible. Like, despite her story being unfortunate and tragic, and like every character is in Orbs,
Mm,
the ultimate point and the ultimate goal is that her ideals and what she did was enough to
yeah,
pass on the torch. And that
exactly.
is all that matters, is that these characters, despite having tragic endings and tragic stories, did enough. And that is something that throughout history we champion, but in storytelling we don't always feel, it feels unsatisfying. But I think what Orb does is it puts it in such a light that, because we're so attached to the story of heliocentrism and see what has been sacrificed for it, we are happy that it was just, it
Yeah.
being just enough feels like the world to us, because
Yep.
we did not think it was going to be. There
No,
were so
yeah.
many challenges and so many reasons why it shouldn't have been enough, but the fact that it was is brings us so much joy.
Yeah, it is something else. Just give it a go. Watch it for yourself. Again, this show, it just shows, willingly or not, people can and do serve a cause which becomes substantial in our lives. So see it, let us know, and I'm sure you'll like it and go and watch it again.
Yeah.
So
I need
yeah,
some time before I watch it again.
yeah,
I definitely need time.
it needs some digestion for sure.
But yeah, those were our three anime sections that are going to be doing on the show every single time. But I don't know how consistent we'll be able to do the manga, manhwa, and manhwa session, but we'll try
Yeah,
to do one every single time. It's just that watching three anime a month and a
true.
manga has been, as we learned, decently difficult with managing
Yeah,
this.
like our main focus for sure is the anime section of this show. So it's like Jared recommending me one, me recommending him one, and then us deciding a third one. Not possibly, like certainly that neither of us have seen.
Hmm.
Um, and talk about it, and manga, manhwa kind of stuff. It's gonna be a bit more on me anyways, because I feel like
Yeah,
I'm the one that reads manga and manhwa more
yeah.
often than not.
My manga and manhwa and manhwa reading is, if it ends up becoming an animation of some sort, I'll be like, oh, it's done animation. I'll read the source material.
Yeah,
I've read a couple that it's like, oh, I've heard so many good things about it that I'll read it, but it's very rare that I'll read a whole. Like, I don't have anything against it, but it's just like the time that it takes versus animation. I just enjoy animation more. So,
no, I hear you, and I can relate to that because
but I do need you to introduce me to more, because it's not like
yeah,
I dislike the medium. It's just I sometimes don't have the motivation to start it.
no, I hear you. Like, and I feel like some shows, um, anime medium is better for that story, like for sure,
Hmm.
especially surprise surprise music ones. Because like actually hearing the music kind of elevates the story. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, we'll definitely try to keep up with this, as well as our short seasonal anime updates, because we told from the get-go we're not trying to be like another generic anime podcast that just talks about.
So yeah, did you watch Dandadan this week? Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
watched Dandadan
exactly.
this week.
Like,
Yeah, I thought Dandadan was great. Like, yeah.
we don't want to be that, but we still want our audience to, hear from us about up and coming interesting shows.
Yeah, it's a way to connect. And
Exactly.
I mean, if Emre is going to be leading the manga section, I definitely watch more of the seasonal
For
stuff.
sure,
And it's a
yeah.
way that I think is, I like anime as a way to connect, but I don't like it being the first and foremost thing. So I will talk about it, but that's why we're bookending it at the end of the show, because we think it's a bit more secondary to everything else. But
Yep.
it's an important conversation that I like to have regardless. But for this manga section, we're starting off real simple. Starting off with
Real.
shonen.
Exactly. Look, if you all didn't gathered it by now, but like, mentioning Sword Art Online as one of my important series and all, and like Captain Tsubasa and stuff, I definitely do like my shonens. Does it get too cheesy sometimes? For sure. But I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted something that comes from mangaka that has a good reputation for themselves. That I feel like a lot of people would still be interested in because of the mangaka. And that mangaka is Ishida Sui, which, for those who don't know, creator of Tokyo Ghoul.
And we're talking about the manga of Tokyo
And-
Ghoul. We're not talking about the animation.
Yeah. And this manga we're going to talk about is the second series that's being produced by this mangaka, which is Choujin X. And Choujin X, it's about this character or high school boy named Kurahara Tokyo. He's a standard loser character, always living in the shadow of his best friend Azuma Higashi, wanting to be a person of his own, or even maybe surpass him, or at least be on par with him. That being said, with those desires, he enters into a different reality because
He's got to awaken to his powers. Dude.
he's got that emotions and stress causing this situation.
I believe they would say that he has that dog in him.
Exactly. And his Choujin powers awake. And again, the world around him reshapes because now he's not in just a human world, but he is in between a Choujin and a human world reality. The Choujin powers and character designs are really sick. Really
I
nice.
fucking love them.
It's like art and design decisions on these characters and power balances and stuff. It's crazy. It's really nice. And other than that, it is still a very much shonen
Yep.
manga. It starts off relatively small, has a small, like, I'd say skeleton cast, like
Yeah.
not too big, decent size, classic like Jujutsu Kaisen or like other
Smaller than Jujutsu
fighting
Kaisen, but yeah.
small, yeah, like in terms of like three main characters
Oh,
being
yeah, the
in a
typical
sense,
shonen,
yeah,
yep.
exactly, like typical shonen setup. And again, I already told I like shonen, but it does come with its limitations from time to time, so keep that in mind. But yeah, that's kind of like a description introduction to the show.
Yeah.
You've kind of been forced to pick this up and like read about it. So what's your impression on it?
Like I said, I do want to be transparent about my perspective with shonens, and just like my perspective in general on things. I'm not the biggest fan of shonens. Like I don't hate them. Like I do like, for example, love Hunter x Hunter, but and I grew up watching Naruto as someone who's like a big fan of Sasuke Uchiha, even though I shouldn't be. Like in terms of my objective mind,
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of him. But in terms of my subjective mind, I'm a huge fan of him. But I don't like how limiting it is because a lot of the choices feel like they have to be made, and there's a lot of things that need to be done, and it really restricts a great idea. Like I think Choujin X's idea when it comes to how the powers look and how they manifest, like they're so cool. Like I don't think many other shows would be like, yeah, a vulture is going to be our design for the main character, and it's like he's someone who's like kind of a scavenger, but it's like, oh, but vultures fly so high and they have this great perspective, and it's like he's like this being of death. Like I think it's such a cool idea, and it's like weirdly enough related to X-Men, especially when you look at like less so about how the powers manifest, but more of the dynamic between the Choujin and the real people, and how it's like they're kind of a minority, even though they have these great powers.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's like, these powers are kind of a curse to them, because what's even like cool about the show is like the chaos state they enter when they awaken it, and this violence, like the violence awakenings, which is kind of, it's a little like Persona, but not really. The fact that it's like these powers are things that can go out of control at any moment related to emotions is really cool. I think it's something that I guess if we were talking about, Rascal, whereas like Rascal is like, it's more directly related. It's kind of just like, if you're under stress, you'll enter the state. And I wish that was a bit more defined, but I love how they use the art and depict it. Like the art of this show or this manga is so good. I love the designs and I love the art. And it's like, there's so many cool small ideas related to the character designs, like fucking Tokyo talking to pigeons, and it's like, yeah, that's a cool niche part of his power. But yeah, I do, when you get further into it, you get reminded it's a shonen. Like I love how slow the start is. I would relate it kind of to Chainsaw Man's start, where it's like very slow, focused on like the main character's interiority and feelings, but those get forgotten super quick.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Especially with the time skips.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, so one thing that I would say that that Choujin does better is that the main like trio like power dynamics a lot more fair. Like Tokyo, I mean, we haven't finished reading it as well. I got about like 50 chapters in, so I'm not fully caught up, but I'm almost caught up.
Yeah.
And like Ellie is much more of a character than your average female part of this. Like Ellie is quite frankly the strongest determined character and quite powerful herself. Like
I want to say this. Not all of them, obviously. I'm kind of talking in the general scape of things, but Ellie is one of the very few actually useful main female shonen characters we have
in this typical setup.
Exactly. Like
she's very, very active, which I appreciate.
Because like, and we all know this, and we're not a fan of this, and at this point it just started becoming a meme, but whenever you look at your classic shonen setup, the female lead kind of ends up being lackluster in terms of power dynamics and like how much they affect the world. And Ellie, I feel like, is a really good solution to that problem, because like mangaka didn't hold back. They were like, she's powerful, she's influential, and like she is actually a cornerstone of this story.
She's
and
not just a
world.
love interest.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so we dig that part.
But they still have some other characters who follows typical shonen problem. Like, it's not like Azuma, who's this character typically, but there is like the Megumi Fushiguro type character from JJK, who it's like not. Sometimes it's the first rival, sometimes it's like second rival character. In this case, it's second rival character that just gets diffed every single fucking scene they're in. Just gets the living shit beaten out of them. And that's Simon, who it's like, I have this power raised from a clan. Sound familiar? My whole clan was killed. Everyone is like, dead, but I'm going to be... And then just gets the living shit beaten out of them. And it's like... Yep. Seeing that always sucks, because I'm just like, man, I want this character to cook. I want this character to be able to have able to like, ground their feet in the story. And when they can't do that, I just don't care about them, which sucks. It really sucks, even if I like the character design or maybe their origin story or something. But when that happens, it's like, well, all focus is on Tokyo now. Like, I think, especially with the time skip, like the time skip of this story is so egregious. Like,
it's like
it's within like the first 40 chapters, I think.
Yeah, I think around like 45, almost. Like, it suddenly skips time to the point where, by the way, like I'm gonna be fully honest, I didn't realize we were going for a time skip until it actually skipped.
My guy was like, oh, I'm just gonna go on this trip, and it's like, oh, he's going on. Wait, it's been 1.5 years, or like
exactly.
1 year.
Like you're expecting like a training arc, like where you see him running around the mountains or whatever, but like it's you turn the page and it's like,
1 year
it's been
later.
a year
Yeah,
and
it
a
just shows like
half.
his like passport or something.
Yeah. So that and I remember us talking about some fighting scenes being super like cramped up,
Yeah.
and like how can I put this, like the ink usage, it the way they used the amount they used in those scenes kind of makes everything else blend to each other, so it becomes hard to follow the scene on the page.
Yeah, like I think even the panel choices are a bit. Sometimes the panels jump a little too much between actions. I also think that a lot of these fights aren't. I think the chaos fights are the most interesting one. When there's like
Yeah.
basically like David versus Goliath type situations, those are great. But when it's like Choujin versus Choujin, both not like in a fully awakened form or like fully chaos form, those are when it's a bit more like
Yeah.
it's a bit harder to read and things are kind of flying. And also those fights are usually really one sided. Those are
Hmm.
when it's like, oh man, this is super hard to like get invested into. Like when we were talking about like JJK, even though I'm not a big fan of JJK, I think the paneling is much better. I think the fighting scenes are much better. Even I mean, a manga that I really stand by, and especially as a manga, not as an animation, is Blue Lock. Like Blue Lock's panels are fucking gorgeous, and the action, despite it not being animated, is easier to follow than the animation, just because the panels are placed in more significant,
Yeah.
understandable spots. And it's like Choujin X, like it's one thing to drop the ball with the story, but when a shonen is dropping the ball on action scenes, that really hurts its appeal. Like it really
Yeah.
hurts its appeal.
And I really felt that, especially because like if you like when you read manga, and people who read manga more often will understand what I mean, is that like when you see panels and like you understand the idea behind that sequence or fighting scene and what they wanted to go for, and what you see is so much further away from that idea, that kind of disturbs you, because now you're looking at a page where you're like, they wanted to do this, but it doesn't look like it whatsoever. And I really felt that in the Holy Mother
Oh
fight
god, that fight,
sequence.
yeah.
Like it didn't start off bad, but whenever it got more like active, like actual fighting, and like everyone chasing them and like they're falling down, and it's like,
The falling part made it really hard to
yeah,
follow.
it's like, okay, now I know what's happening and I know what should be happening, but the visuals I see I can't follow with my eyes, which gives you a struggle. Uh, which again, like just Jared said, it's not the best thing to do for a shonen manga.
Yeah, when a shonen manga can't fulfill its main dopamine response, like don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other parts of Choujin X that are super good in terms of like the like cool styles and cool powers and the
Mm,
character concepts. When you can't do the action dopamine, that really hurts. Like for even a show like JJK, like action dopamine's there. Even a show like My Hero that I'm not the biggest fan of anymore, it's like dopamine, you know?
yeah,
When you can't get that out of a shonen these days, like like there's so many that it really like you need to meet that bar for it
yeah,
to get traction. And so I think this show is getting an anime, right? At some point. There's like
yeah,
discussions about it at the
and
very least.
exactly. And I was gonna say one of the reasons that's happening is I feel like it does slightly um and consistently gets better.
Hmm.
I feel like mangaka kind of, because Tokyo Ghoul wasn't the most action induced
Yeah.
manga as well, so I feel like mangaka is kind of getting a feel for it and actually improving on. I use so much actually, um, but indeed started improving um what we're talking about right now, and and because of that, because it's improving, because it's getting better slowly and steadily, it will most certainly hit that dopamine in the future chapters.
Yeah, I think it will hit that dopamine, but I think a lot of the other parts of the story will restrict it from maybe blow. Like I think season one might blow up really well, but I
Yeah.
think after that it's going to really struggle to find its niche. I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem with shonens is you have to find your niche. Otherwise, the next hottest show will replace you.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, before we cut it on Choujin X, to wrap everything we said up, it's a good show. As in, it has good character design. It has a well thought personality to power relation.
yeah.
Really good like substantial characters kind of build.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
character writing is solid. I don't think it's new, unique, but it's
exactly.
solid. I don't dislike it.
And then decent sized world with other like side characters and environmental characters and stuff.
Yeah, I like the scope. It's
Um,
not too big.
Though, like we said, it does have its limitations, like hectic or crowded fight scenes and like some abrupt time skipping issues. But again, maybe pick it up, maybe find it online, try to read it. Maybe it'll intrigue you like it did me, or maybe it will push you off like it did Jared.
Okay, I think I think it's all right. I would not say
I'm
that
just
again. It's a I would say I like it less than Baccano for sure. But
Yeah.
I would not like not recommend it to someone. Like if someone was really into to shonen, I'd be like, yeah, it's a worthwhile shonen, all things considered, but it's a shonen.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's get on to our seasonal part because this is the part that there's one thing I really want to talk about, and one thing I've wanted to talk about, which is Dandadan season 2. Oh wow, you've heard
Let's
me talk
go.
about Dandadan and other popular shows like Freyren and
What's
Apothecary
Don
Diaries.
Dan? I never heard of it. No.
Weirdly enough, the YouTuber I mentioned, Muxedo Task, has a video similar to what I'm about to talk about. Not exactly about why maybe I don't like Dandadan. I like Dandadan as a show, like objectively, I like it as a show, but I highly dislike how it's talked about, and I also really dislike the production. So, I did a bit more research about maybe why people, as in fans, like split curves or dislike split curves, as in like the back-to-back seasons, but usually separated by like a season apart. So if it's like 2024 winter, I think is when Dandadan was, and now it's 2025 summer is when they're doing part 2 of season 2. Some people are like, oh, I think it's better if it gives production more time to rest, or and I don't like some people are like, I don't like how it gives people cliffhangers and all these things. I'm really against it, like really, really against it, because one of the things that I really despise about it is that people think it gives production rest. It doesn't. Like, it really doesn't. What it does is it allows them to get a potentially influx of money and also gauge how popular the show is, and then know if they need to cancel it or not. Which then can, put like, either freelancers out of work or like, can really affect production flow in general. And it's like a very greedy choice to do, as well as it's like, it doesn't give you the same feeling of accomplishment when you've only finished one part and not the whole thing. Like I really dislike that part about Dandadan, and it's another thing is that they need to keep the show in the mainstream longer. So what they do is it's almost like how like popular shonens do filler, right? Like One Piece, it sucks. It really sucks, and it's like
And
it's not,
One Piece is the best example, like
Yeah.
best in terms of the one with the least amount of fillers out there.
yeah, but like you can think about
Bleach.
Bleach, Naruto, like all those shows are trying to find solutions to not making filler but still staying relevant. And I think that people do not understand how high stress that is. Like I think one thing is like Apothecary Diaries was not split curves. It was 2 separate seasons. So it's now 48 episodes done within the past like
I think
like
a
year and a half. Yeah. Which is insane. Like I know
is.
it's a collaboration by I think OLM and some other studio. I think it's like maybe Production IG. Or no, it's Madhouse and OLM, I think. But that's like insane. And it's the whole need is to be in the mainstream and have people talking about you and having buzz. And I'm like, oh my God, I hate just buzz talk about like, oh my God, I like this part, I like that part. And it's so empty of like void. And like that's the whole reason we're doing this show is to have conversation that's not just buzz talk and void and all this kind of pointless stuff. Because yeah, saying all these things I like about Dandadan is like, great. But I think really digging into a character would be great. That said, we're about to talk about Dan because we don't have the time to talk about Dan.
Yeah.
I would say that as a show, Science Saru is an interesting studio because they've done very little. I think their biggest other project before this was Devilman Crybaby, which super
Yeah.
unique show has Kensuke Usho obviously again on it.
Has its characteristics.
Yeah, it's but I would not say it's like incredible. I would say they've really started cooking with Dan season 2 and the show as a whole. But I think they teamed up with another either animation studio or production company of some sort to help them with this because like it's a really because of how stylistic the show is in my opinion. I think it's like such a heavy workload that
You did watch the first.
yeah, I watched the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
I haven't seen any dip in quality or anything like that, which is good.
Okay.
Unlike,
That's good.
other shows that I've seen that do this. Like I think Solo Leveling, like even though the end of season 2 is really good, the start of season 2 is a bit rough because it does this it does season 1, season 2, not split curves type thing, but it basically is a split cur. But yeah, I would say that like a big thing for me is like Dan's a great start in getting into anime, even though it's a bit weird and all these things, and it's honestly trying to be Mob Psycho. It's trying to be Mob Psycho, let's be real. But there's so much more to anime than Dan. And I think a large part of the show is going to be showing people those type of shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not fully excited about season 2 because while I haven't seen any of the red flags just yet, I'm really worried that people are going to expect a season 2, like a proper season 2, not a season 1 part 2 within the next year, which is not sustainable. Frankly, not sustainable. Like a show that is a big victim, a big victim of like not being popular enough is one of our favorites is Haikyuu, which is like it's like from season 1 to season 4, like it was like what from like 2016 until like 2021 or something, which is like too much time for the average viewer. But it's like you need time for these things, and so I think people not being patient is a big. The anime attention span just like really rough, but. Yeah, I'll talk more about Dan as it progresses, but I would say so far so good, but also it has a lot of red flags, and also it's probably going to be forgotten about.
It has a lot of red flags in the production department of things for sure.
Yeah, like I think the show is good itself, but it has a lot of it's not a very new show. It has fun ideas, but I'm worried it's going to be. I always get worried that I'm going to be watching a show that's super forgettable, even if I like it. And I'm worried Dan, despite having this stylistic thing that's really going on, is going to be more forgettable than people think. Because right now it's like it's in the front of your mind, it's being hyped and marketed, but like you'll be shocked how many of those shows like, I mean, compare the My Hero hype from 8 years ago to now. Like it's insane that the final season's coming out and no one cares,
True.
or like way less people care.
Yeah, true.
But for the other shows that are coming out this season, we've talked about Bunny Girl Senpai, or I guess this one is called Rascal Does Not Dream of Santa Claus.
Yeah, something like that.
It's, as I said, it's starting off real slow because I think expecting viewers to kind of come back into it, even if they've seen the movies, and like even the first like character arc is going really really slow. Like the first episode's mostly introduction, but it's still basically the exact same product. I think you see the consistency in that. Even though they went the movies route, which I don't love, you can tell that at least it helped them with their production overall.
Yeah.
Because not have getting the money from movies can definitely help, and but B also not stressing yourself to like make a whole season is just it's a completely different beast to make a whole season than doing a movie. And I think the movies were appropriate for the light novels that were.
Yeah, no, that was
Yeah.
certainly needed, and I, being someone who doesn't watch movies a lot, anime movies, I certainly appreciated the ones. Coming up next is basically the fragrant flower blossom with dignity.
Yeah, it's a really mouthful of a title. I watched the first 2 episodes of this one. I can't really say judgment for it just yet, just because it's super, super romance anime. Like he goes to this school, I go to this school, our schools hate each other. Oh, but she's really kind. And
People of different worlds.
yeah, it's
and, like,
real
okay.
real stereotypical, but I've heard good things about it, so I'm gonna still give it a shot.
Nice.
You're excited for Kaiji number 8, despite me not being.
Oh yeah. I am a diligent follower of the manga, as you can see over here, and I picked this volume because from what I gathered, this is going to be around where the second season starts, so volume 4. And I really like it. I really like it because I feel like it is okay, I'm not. It's gonna be a good shonen, which Attack on Titan.
Careful with your words there. You're gonna make a lot of people angry, even though I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I know. Like
It's Attack on Titan. Let's be real. So many things are similar.
okay,
To Attack on
I was
Titan.
gonna say it's gonna success in certain aspects where Attack on Titan failed.
Yeah.
As a shonen, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing depends on
The premise.
yeah, the premise and you liking shonen and all that stuff. But like, I've been following this from basically first volume. Since first volume, it's nice. I like intense fighting scenes in manga, especially that are drawn good. That kind of gives you the feeling of it, and I feel like Kaiju no 8 does a great job at that. So far, I've been pleased enough with the anime. Certainly, it's not the best in terms of production it can get, but I feel like the more audience it gets, the better the quality will be as well, which with season 2, I'm hoping to see that at least a little bit. But yeah, as of shooting this episode, we still have 2 more days till we see season 2, episode 1. So we'll talk about it more after we get to watch that.
Yeah, I might catch up to it. I watched about 8 episodes and then kind of lost interest just because it was following a lot of the same beats of things like Attack on Titan. I would say I'm a bit disappointed by, again, it's like when I'm watching a shonen-ish type show and it's not, the action scenes in the anime weren't really cooking for me and they weren't really super exciting. I think they were fine. I don't think they were bad, but it's just when that part of the show isn't hitting, it's a lot harder for me to connect to it.
Yeah.
One show that haven't watched this, I just didn't get the time this week, was Lord of the Mysteries. I'm going to mention a lot of Chinese animation
They're doing
coming up
crazy
just
work
because,
out there.
yeah, for those of you who don't know, Lord of the Mysteries, rumored, I don't know if it's for sure, has 30K frames per 30-minute episodes, and I was told that Bilibili basically gave them a blank check, from what I know. Or not Bilibili, was it? It's Tencent, who is owned by Bilibili. Or, I mean, Tencent, who owns Bilibili.
Yeah.
But I'm going to watch it. I'm a big fan of Chinese animation that's becoming more popular. I'm going to watch, I've watched Link Click, which is the one that we might talk about on the show at some point. I'm a huge fan of Link Click, and I think was a big catalyst of more popularizing modern Chinese animation. I mean, like, you know, the King's Avatar is like the starting point for big popularity, but for modern, I would say Link Click's really important. There is also 2B Hero X, which I know is still finishing right now, but I don't even know anything about it. But for
yeah, visually that picked my attention.
yeah,
too,
Lord of the
so
Mysteries
we'll see.
looks really good. I watched about 5 minutes of the first episode, and I was like, oh, this looks great. There's a couple of under the radar shows that, well, I think I looked at Gachiakuda's numbers, and Gachiakuda is not under the radar apparently. People are watching this show.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. Gachiakuta, it started off as under the radar, and it's one of those animes. First of all, I know this because I read the manga of it as well. A lot of upcoming animes that we'll end up talking are also gonna be a lot of mangas that I read, because usually mangas I enjoy end up having an anime because I have an eye for quality. No, anyways, that being said, I was reading Gachiakuta's manga, and when the anime first announced, the manga is obviously popular enough to have an anime, but it wasn't, widely known, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it got hyped. Like, they dropped the first trailer and they did a great job with that trailer, and
Yeah.
ever since it's been getting more and more interest.
It's animated by Bones, by the way.
Yeah,
So pretty big studio.
Animation is pretty good, and like their premise, the story premise, I like it.
I like
I'm
it
not-
too, but it's a bit heavy-handed and a bit edgy. Like, I really like the concept, but it's just like it does the dystopia type situation.
But
you
you gotta have it every
neglected
every now
character
and then.
whose foster father is dead, like that type of thing. It's just
Yeah.
very stereotypical, but the origin and core of it, and the feeling of it's like when you care for an object enough, it's gonna have a soul inhabit it. I love that concept.
And
I would say
then-
weirdly enough, the main character also has this Dangan Rampa art style that I'm not a big fan of that art style, so it was just weird to me. But I think the show looks
Especially the eyes. Yeah,
yeah,
I get what you mean.
yeah. I think the show looks good overall. I have opinions on the way the CGI monsters look, but I'm gonna withhold on that until we see more of it because I think they didn't look bad, but I think it looked repetitive, which was my take on it.
Yeah.
But I would say it was. I'm definitely excited about Gachakuda, which is
Yeah.
for a shonen a bit rare.
And then the last thing we're keeping our eyes on is the summer Hikaru died.
So I watched episode 1 of this.
You did?
and
Okay,
Yep. I was
perfect.
trying to watch episode 2, but it was man, it's a very sad show. Shockingly, with a name like that.
Well, we did watch the trailer together. and,
Yeah.
like, it
Also, the
kinda-
first two reactions when you watch this are sad and oh, this is probably pretty gay. And it's
Okay.
like I really like those type of stories, but I was like, when I was watching it, episode 1, it really is like it's really heavy-handed, and I think there's a lot of small nuances in the show that make it interesting. But I'm worried that the need for it to be sad and about this one dynamic is going to be a bit overwhelming for it. But I really like a lot of the nuances and what the character notices about each other and their relationship. But yeah, I definitely have a bit of like reservation about it, even though I've
Okay.
really liked it so far. It feels a bit much too much sob story for me. I think that can change at any moment, but I like the first episode, to be quite frank, but I
Okay.
think it also is a bit much.
Now you got me even more interested, so I'll watch it and I'll see what's what too. But that being said, this was officially our episode 1 of the Obscure Arc podcast, and I hope you all enjoy watching this podcast of ours. It really did just happened because we wanted to have a reason to talk about anime even more and
Yeah.
kind of felt like putting the ideas and perspectives we have, which are not necessarily the most common ones, outside there and hopefully do something here.
For me, my thought was that if I don't have the time in my life to watch and talk about anime, I need to reprioritize my life because those are things I care about. Like, it's not like my biggest priority in life, but they're things I really do care about as a hobby. And yeah, the show has been a great outlet for me, and it's also been good at forcing me to watch and and follow what I preach.
For sure, yeah. So
For next show, I think this is
are we
important.
giving
for,
are
if-
we giving
yeah,
like,
I think if
after
people
credit
want
spoilers? Okay.
no, I think if people want to follow along, it would be something that they might be interested in.
Okay.
That we're going to be doing this about once a month, depending on our schedules.
Yeah.
But the next show is I'm going to be making him watch Run with the Wind, which he's already kind of started. He's pretty deep into it now.
Yeah.
And he's going to be making me watch Dororo, which is not something I've started at all yet, but I plan to get to soon. I've been pretty busy.
And the only reason I asked him to watch Dororo is because he told me and told y'all he likes sad and edgy,
Yeah.
black hair kind of, main character stuff. So I'm like, okay, I got you. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then our
Shared
together
watch,
shared watch,
which I know it's insane that neither of us have seen it. I've seen
yeah.
it now, but it's,
yeah, now he's seen it. I haven't watched it yet. Hopefully we'll watch it in the next week or so. It's Akira.
Yep,
Yes, we know.
we know.
We can feel your eyes and
The judgments.
The
Calling
judgments,
ourselves anime
yeah.
fans, but that's why we're here to talk about it. That's what this podcast is for, is to get us to
Exactly.
watch the things that have been on our watch list for years. We don't have a manga or anything for next month, but we'll see. We
Yeah,
might.
I'll for sure come up with something. I have some possible candidates, but since this is episode 1 and
Yeah.
like, we're kind of giving priority to anime and then everything else.
Mhm.
For now, the 3 shows, if you want to join us before watching the episode, you can go and watch is Run with the Wind, Dororo, and Akira. And see you on the next episode.
Yeah, that was episode 1 of the Obscure Arc. Bye.